This is a show with no particular niche, baby. It's always about hanging out. Maybe we'll laugh at some stuff, maybe we'll learn something new, but it's always about hanging out, me and you. Hi, hello, and welcome to this, That Thing with James, a podcast about nothing in particular, hosted by me, James. What's up? If you're new, hi, welcome. Get ready for a surprise, because it's always a surprise to me. I don't have a plan for this show. I just go wherever the wind blows me, baby. And today, it blew me back in time. It blew me. This show is a soft R rating. It's not a hard R. Okay, let's get that straight. This is a soft R rating. More PG-13. God, there is just like so much dust and hair and fluff floating around. And there's a lot of dust here in Oklahoma. This show, my show, I record out of my professional home studio from my couch in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeehaw. Yo, get 'em. Art Deco, yeah, roaring 20s, yeah, Tulsa, home of Black Wall Street, very cool, sad history, but cool that it happened nonetheless, and there are some white families in the rich parts of town here that have evidence, documents, photographs of their own grandparents, great-grandparents' participation in the Tulsa Race Massacre. And these families are vehemently, that's the light word for it, vehemently against sharing the hard evidence that they have of their family's participation in the events of the Tulsa Race Massacre. But that's not at all. Actually, the wind blew me even further back in time, way far back in time, because recently, as in last night, I record this show on Sunday. Last night, Friday, had a hell of a day. I watched a movie, 300. I haven't seen it since college. If you're not familiar, it's a historical epic about the Spartans of ancient Greece fighting against Xerxes. And it always reminds me of this little bit. They made fun of it in South Park. Scissor me timbers, Xerxes. But let's reel back real quick, because I just remembered. I mentioned there's a lot of dust and stuff floating around right now, and that's because like the entire state of Oklahoma was on fire a few days ago. There were some parts were historic records, but rare, dry, and wind. We had really high winds, like 70-mile-per-hour gusts. Now, I think it was a couple years ago, we had crazy gusts. I'm talking like 100, 120-mile-an-hour wind gusts. It felt like everything was in a sonic boom. It sounded like cannons going off. The gusts of wind would come through, boom, blew down the everything in this town. The winds were not that strong, a couple days ago? But wildfires spread, well, like wild. And the bulk of it, of course, most of the stuff that hits Oklahoma hits central, the OKC area, because it's flat. That's the plains area. So they got the bulk of the fires, but they spread even all the way east over here to Tulsa, up in green country, up in the hills. And there were fires here, and this poor town of Manford, which is like a 40-minute drive west of here, I believe. Whole damn town burned down. Whole town burned down, I think. I think maybe the McDonald's is still standing, but the town burned down within a matter of one day. And I feel so sorry for those people and everyone who loses, and the people in California who lost their homes, their businesses, their livelihood, their lives to these wildfires. And it infuriates me. And don't get it twisted by how calm my tone and demeanor is right now. It infuriates me how these things are happening. Wildfires are becoming more and more common across the country. Rapid, extreme changes in weather conditions and weather patterns. It infuriates me how these dangerous changes are happening right in front of you. They are directly affecting you. And yet so many people still insist that climate change is not real. I remember a year or two ago, I didn't even really broach the topic, but this person I was talking to, it's a older gentleman, maybe 60 years old, white guy, said, I don't buy into that whole climate conspiracy. As we're in I don't know if this was the fact, but it's not a far off example. It's like 80 degrees in the dead of winter. I don't buy that whole climate conspiracy. No, it infuriates me, and this is a problem. But that's not what this episode is about. That's enough. That's enough of that, James. You're gonna go down that route, and you're gonna get lost for way too long. But that's not what today's episode is about. Today, as I mentioned a little bit ago, I rewatched for the first time since college the movie 300, co-written and directed by the greatest filmmaker of all time, Zack Snyder. Audio only listeners, since you cannot see me right now, I will describe to you the scene. Although I am fully articulating my words, right now, my tongue is planted firmly in my cheek when I say Zack Snyder is the greatest filmmaker of all time. Tongue in cheek. He's got some good movies. I enjoy his movies. I enjoy 300. I wouldn't say the dude's best in the world. That's me. It's just no one knows it yet. But Zack Snyder really, really is great at dudes rock type stuff. I mean, he's really good at dudes rock. And he also made that movie Sucker Punch, which I did see in the theaters and I did enjoy. And apparently there's one scene that was cut out of the theatrical version. And I don't know if I've seen it. Well, it seems like every single movie Zack Snyder puts out, there's there's one integral scene missing. And you have to get the Snyder cut to see the real story he wanted to get across. Every movie he puts out has a Snyder cut. Well, or Zack Snyder. Yeah, I was starting to think, Snyder? What is it? How do you say his name? I want to see the director's cut version of Sucker Punch because I hear it kind of changes the message a little bit. Speaking of comic book movies, I would really love to see a miniseries because you would need it to be a miniseries, a proper adaptation of Alan Moore's V for Vendetta. The movie was pretty fun when it came out. I remember, I saw it first. And then years later, I still have it, read the graphic novel, and I love it. And I would love to see a honest, a true, a faithful screen adaptation of that graphic novel. I think that could translate very well. Most of Alan Moore's stuff translates if done faithfully, could translate very well to the screen, because after all, graphic novels are a visual medium as well as a written medium. Anyway, yeah, I watched 300, Scissor Me Timbers, Xerxes, Dudes Rock. I love the poses of these like 8-pack abbed dudes, fucking doing crunches in the background, posed up like they're, at a bodybuilding modeling competition, whatever those things are called. I love it. It's a fun movie. And it got me thinking, what are some little known facts about ancient Greece? And so I looked it up. I've got a few sites pulled up right now that we're going to get into. I've sort of skimmed over a little bit of them, but as I usually do in this show, I didn't even think of it until the last minute. So we are going to discover this information together. See, I told you. This show is about hanging out, me and you. And me and you, baby, we're going on a fun journey back in time to ancient Greece with Rick Steves. God, I would love to have Rick Steves on this show. That dude rocks. Talk about dudes rock. Rick Steves rocks. Anyway, we're going to get into that. First, I'll let you know, there are lots of bonus episodes of the show, over 100 as a matter of fact, and you can get access to all of them by supporting this podcast at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames, patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. It's $5 for the bare minimum entry. There's other tiers with other perks, but $5 will get you 30 days of access to all 100 plus bonus episodes. Plus, you will get peace of mind of getting to support an independent show like mine, no ads or anything like that, and an independent artist, writer, actor, me. Hey, what's up? Patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. Support the show, get something in return. And to those of you who are already patrons, thank you so much. You rock. You can find that link written in the episode description right above the handles and my social handles, show email, and subreddit. That stuff's in the episode description. Okay, let me take a sip of water, pull up the articles I found, and we are going to get into it in just a second. Beep. Yummy water and a sip of coffee with just a little touch of, not a whole lot, just a little touch for flavor. A little bit of Kahlua in my coffee. It's the weekend. Tomorrow is St. Patrick's Day. It will have already passed by the time this episode comes out. Happy late St. Patrick's Day. I'm not wearing green because it's not St. Patrick's Day yet, so do not pinch me. You will get punched. Nah, I'm not a violent guy. I'm not going to punch you. I might giggle, though. Here we go. We're starting off with this article on GreekTravelTellers.com. Title is 10 Things You Didn't Know About Ancient Greeks. This article was published day before my birthday on December 14th of 2019. Here we go. You may know the basics about Socrates, or if you're a fan of, Bill and Ted, Socrates. If you're a fan of Socrates, Pericles, theater, hey, I am, and sciences. I studied theater. I've got a master's in it. That's why I'm fucking doing this. I don't know what else to do. Your knowledge may go a step further and include myths of ancient gods and heroes. But how many details do you know about the ancient Greeks' everyday life? I know I don't know much. Here is a list of interesting facts you probably didn't know about the great civilization of the past. Number 1, ancient Greeks. I'm hitting puberty again. Number 1, ancient Greeks used to add water to their wine. Wine was at the core of ancient Greek culture. There was even, one of my favorites, a god of wine in the pantheon. God Dionysus is also wine, revelry, and theater. That's why King Dionysus is one of my favorites, or God Dio, not king. However, it was considered hubris for mortals to get drunk, a habit suited only to barbarians. Oh, so they were pulling a class thing, huh? They were pulling we're not the barbarians thing. It was considered hubris for mortals to get drunk, a habit suited only to barbarians. It was believed that only god Dionysus could drink wine without water and not get drunk. He was just an alcoholic. You had to drink to feel normal. If mortal men did not water their wine, there was a danger of them becoming violent and losing their minds. Reminds you of those Saturday nights when you were younger, doesn't it? Reminds me of 7 days a week when I was younger. I don't drink much at all anymore. Sans the little tiny bit of flavor Kahlua in my coffee. It's whatever. They were adding water to their wine. This way they could drink a lot of wine without getting drunk. Or at least that was the idea. During winter, in order to save water, they would put snow in their cups. Oh, that's cool. Snow wine? I want to drink that. The usual ration would be half wine, half water. That's not uncommon where in history where, you might have heard people used to just like drink alcohol in the absence of water. When there was clean drinking water throughout history, people did know how to purify water. And often one of the ways they did that was by adding a little bit of alcohol to their water. So when you hear about people were drinking all the time, it was really low percentage alcohol in their beverages, often, FYI, even in vodka. Hint, if you wish to drink wine produced with ancient Greek vinification technique, have a look at Ancient Greek Symposium, The Experience. Okay, that's just a link to another article. Let's go on. Number 2. There was one mother for all ancient Greek monsters. I'm not familiar with this one, so we're about to learn something new together. Or maybe you already know this, I don't know. Most of the famous monsters from Greek mythology had the same mother, Echidna. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Like Knuckles, the Echidna. I think that's how you pronounce it. Echidna. Echidna. I like Echidna, mother of monsters, was half woman and half snake. Ooh, that would scare me. I'm afraid of snakes. I know they're more afraid of me than I am of them. That doesn't change my, the irrational fear. What's the word for that? Doesn't matter. Echidna and her mate, Typhon, a monstrous serpentine giant, reminds me of that one dude from Elden Ring, tried to overthrow Zeus for the supremacy of the world. Zeus, with the aid of his thunderbolts, managed to defeat them and punished Typhon by burying him underneath Mount Etna. Echidna and her descendants lived to challenge many future heroes. Some of her descendants were Cerberus, the three-headed dog of Hades, guardian of the underworld, Lernaean Hydra, we know about Hydra, the serpentine water monster that was killed by Hercules, Chimera, the fire-breathing hybrid creature, who is also present in Dragon Dogma 2, video game, the treacherous Sphinx, also in Dragon's Dogma, that would kill anyone that would answer wrongly her riddle, and Scylla, Scylla, the legendary monster that killed many of Odysseus's crew during his adventures in Homer's Odyssey. Oh boy, those were the days. Also, I know, okay, I did know a lot of these monsters because I grew up watching Xena, Warrior Princess. Love that show. It's better than Hercules, plus that dude who plays Hercules. Sorbo, Kevin Sorbo. He's a fucking tool, right winger. Number 3, ancient Greeks used stones for toilet paper. Now, this conflicts a little bit. Maybe it's another option they used because there's something else I saw that we might get into after this article. Number 3, ancient Greeks used stones for toilet paper. It may come as a surprise to many, but there was no toilet paper in classical Greece. The things that people from different cultures of the world would use before the invention of toilet paper is really endless. It includes tree leaves, corn, hence the name cornhole, which is the game cornholing or whatever, cornball, whatever. It just makes me think of butthole, cornhole. Coconut shells. He doesn't know how to use the 3 coconut shells. There's a classic movie reference for you, classic 90s. Sheep's wool and sails for those who could afford it. Sponges tied to rods. That's the other one I read about. Or plain water. But arguably, it is the ancient Greeks who make the difference. For particular hygiene purposes, they used stones, pebbles, or ceramic pieces. Useful information to remember if you ever camp in the woods or at a beach and you run out of toilet paper. Number 4, ancient Greeks could have been partially colorblind. I have heard about this. And also, I forget which African tribe it is, but there was one where I think some might still exist, where the sky to them is not blue as it appears to you and I, most likely, but black. Yeah. So different cultures and different times, they perceived colors differently. Not even just like different names, but physically, they would see different colors. Interesting stuff. Homer, in his famous works Iliad and Odyssey, I've not read the Iliad, but I have read the Odyssey, and I love it. I read it back in like junior high or something, just for shits and giggles. Describes that wasn't supposed to be a boast. I just fucking, what do you do when there's nothing to do? You read, hopefully. It's a great way to pass the time. Describes the Mediterranean Sea as wine dark sea. Homer described the sea as wine dark sea. Have you ever looked at the sea and thought that it was the color of claret? No. Homer actually names only a few color terms and uses these same colors to describe objects that look quite different. According to Mark Bradley, Associate Professor of Ancient History at the University of Nottingham, color operated in a very different way in antiquity from what we are used to today. According to him, the Greeks viewed color as essentially the visible outermost shell of an object. So the fire wouldn't be red, it was fire-colored. The dirt would be dirt-colored. The sky would be sky-colored. Skin would be skin-colored. Quote, they wouldn't talk in terms of the abstract colors we are used to today, unquote. Interesting. Number 5. I love that. And, when I think about these stories of throughout time, throughout different cultures, what we regard as myths of people seeing gods, half-gods, demons, that sort of thing, I really wonder if these people saw those things, because perception is everything. And what you believe colors what you perceive, and vice versa. And I don't even mean just like mistaking a tree stump for someone crouching in the woods at dusk. I wonder if humans in different cultures really did perceive half human, half bird gods flying and talking to them and stuff like that. We don't know. We really don't know. And I think that's one avenue where the study of psychotropics could really uncover a lot of things in sociological research, because throughout history, different types of psychotropic, psychoactive substances were incorporated as like an everyday part of life. It's just a personal interest of mine. But let's keep reading. Number 5, ancient Greeks counted time in 2 ways. Ancient Greeks had 2 different conceptions of time, using 2 different words, chronos and kairos, or kairos, K-A-I-R-O-S. I don't know. It's Greek to me. The former, chronos, refers to time as we know and measure it today, the chronological time. The latter, kairos, signifies a proper or opportune time for action. In other words, the right time to do something. In contrast to chronos, which is quantitative, kairos has a qualitative nature. Ancient Pythagoreans thought kairos to be one of the most fundamental laws of the universe. In Aristotle's scheme of rhetoric, kairos plays a very important role. For him, kairos is the time and space context in which the proof will be delivered. I like that. So it's not like there's time and then there's the right time for something. I like that. That's interesting. And that accounts for a lot of stuff. When you try to do something and it doesn't work out, that's because the kairos was wrong. It wasn't the right time to do that. Interesting perspective again. Number 6, ancient Greek men used their hair to declare their status quo. This I have heard about before. I forgot about it, but I've heard this one before. Beard was a symbol of prestige for a man. Their grooming was of the utmost importance, but also a subject of competition between men, which made the good hairdressers very sought after. Ancient Greeks, in fact, considered the beard a symbol of manhood and wisdom. The Spartans punished the cowards by shaving part of their beards. Yes, I am familiar with this one. The hair was considered by them to be the most valuable part of that the human body could produce. They believed that the hair gave power to the dead for their journey in the underworld. On the other hand, losing hair for ancient Greeks was not a negative thing. On the contrary, it was an indication of their wisdom. This is the reason most statues depicting philosophers are bald. I wish that was still the case because it's something people can't control. Hair loss, your body does it. You can't really control it. And I wish it was not so looked down upon and mocked, chided, derided. Fun fact, when you visit Greece, you will surely notice that the vast majority of modern Greek men have a full beard, a habit that still survives thousands of years later. Number 7, ancient Greek women were adorning themselves much like today. What does that mean? Women in ancient Greece paid a lot of attention to their appearance. They dyed their hair blonde and added curls using a hot iron. Also, unless I'm mistaken, I think I'm remembering this correctly. Cleopatra, often associated with Egypt, she was Greek with blonde curly hair, FYI. Unless I'm mistaken, but I don't think I am. If I am, let me know in the comments, please. Respectfully. They dyed their hair blonde and added curls using a hot iron. They plucked their eyebrows with tweezers, painted their faces white with lead carbonate, and accentuated their features, particularly the eyes, using mineral and plant dyes. Bronze mirrors, combs made of ivory, small bottles of perfume, alabastra, and boxes for jewelry and cosmetics, Pyxides, 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 I don't know how to say it, it's Greek to me, but completed the range for women's accessories. Waxing, quote unquote, was also a regular thing for them. They used razors made from flints, tweezers, creams, and stones. Number 8, ancient Greeks were very superstitious. Ancient Greeks were very wise, but they were also very superstitious. Superstitions played a big part in their everyday life. Some days of each month were considered ominous, so they would avoid important tasks such as sewing or marriage because the Kairos was wrong for those things. Hey. That's not even written. I just put that together. See, I'm a fucking genius. They would also take measures before doing certain tasks so that they would not anger the gods. For example, praying before first crossing a river. However, there is one superstition that survived to this day in Greece, the so-called evil eye. It is still believed by Greeks that someone can cast an evil eye to someone else out of envy, good or bad, and jealousy. Also, that's in Italy as well. They warn against the evil eye, and they'll put the horns, like the rock and roll horns, but you point the fingers out with the curled fingers pointing to the ground like a bull horns against someone to ward off their hexes, to ward off the evil eye. That's an Italian thing. The symptoms of having the evil eye is dizziness, strong headache, and yawning. The good news is that the spell can be broken by someone that knows how to perform the special counter ritual. Fun fact, the evil eye is a superstition that still survives in Greece today. Most cars will have an amulet of an eye. You've seen it before. It's the blue on the outside and then white and then blue. It just looks like a little eye with like white and blue. I guarantee you've seen it around. Most cars will have an amulet of an eye hanging from the rear mirror to protect those inside the car. Many Greeks wear a bracelet with an eye on it. Number 9, ancient Greeks used sexual performance aids. Ooh, hey. Honey and pepper was the ultimate ancient Viagra. In antiquity, there was a number of preparations designed to improve men's sexual performance. Some of them enabled them to have permanent stimulation. Honey, in combination with pepper, was one of the most common and effective formulations. The man would put the mixture on his penis and rub it with it. Better than Viagra? Definitely cheaper. But wouldn't the pepper burn the insides of a human's orifices? I'm just curious. Or was it cleaned off before insertion? Possibly. I'm going to have to try this out. Number 10. Ancient Greeks had pregnancy tests as well. Pregnancy tests are not a devising of modern times. Ancient Greeks had a rather unusual method for detecting if a woman was pregnant. They would insert a clove of garlic inside the woman's vagina overnight. If she was not pregnant, her breath would smell of onions the next morning. The idea behind this test was that if there was no child, the woman's tomb, I think they meant womb, would be unobstructed, quote unquote, and the smell would travel up to her mouth. However, our guess is that this must have not been very reliable. Another test, nevertheless, comes from the great physician Hippocrates, who believed that the administration of honey and water could have reliable results. The woman would drink a glass of water with diluted honey before bedtime. Sounds nice, like a little toddy sort of thing. And the test would be positive if she experienced bloating and cramps during the night. Okay, so that's that one. I've got another article here to pull up, but first I need to take a sip of water, so I'll be right back in just a second. Beep. Okay, this one is on this website, grease-is.com. Title 10 Lesser Known Facts About Ancient Greece. If there's any overlap between what we just read, I'm going to skip over it, but again, I just barely skimmed over the start of this one. This was published July 11th, 2023, written by Duncan Howitt Marshall. Excuse me. The ancient Greeks left behind a rich cultural legacy that continues to fascinate and influence the world today. We know a great deal about the origins and early development of democracy, their extraordinary advances in science and mathematics, philosophy, as well as the enduring legacy of Greek art, yada, yada, yada. Let's jump into it. First one, toilet hygiene. So the other article said rocks, but they mentioned this thing. In ancient Greece, the most commonly used item, no, the other one said it was rocks, but this one says it's this. In ancient Greece, the most commonly used item for personal hygiene after using the toilet was a sea sponge, or spongos, on a stick known as a xylospongium. Yeah, a sea sponge on a stick. The xylospongium would be moistened with water and used to clean oneself after doing a quote-unquote number two. Afterwards, the sponge would be rinsed in a bucket of salty water or vinegar and kept for future use. In public latrines, these sponges were often shared among multiple individuals. The use of the xylospongium was not limited to ancient Greece, but was prevalent in various ancient societies across the Mediterranean region, including the Romans, who were renowned for their use of public baths. The availability and use of the xylospongium varied depending on social status, with wealthier individuals having access to more luxurious materials, such as fine fabrics or wools, for their own personal use. The other method would be to use, here it is, rounded stones or fragments of ceramic known as passoi, literally pebbles, to wipe the area, which would have posed obvious risks, including skin damage and irritation of external hemorrhoids. Some passoi may have originated as ostraka, pieces of broken ceramics on which members of the various political assemblies would inscribe the names of public enemies. I wipe my ass with you. Okay, strange superstitious beliefs. Ancient Greeks were highly superstitious. They believed in various omens and signs, such as the appearance of certain animals or the way birds flew. They often consulted oracles and divination practices to seek guidance or predict the future. Fun fact about the oracles of Delphi, the place where the oracles are, Delphi, I believe it's ether, just comes out of cracks in the rocks there. And so the oracles would inhale the ether, consult the ethers. And they would trip out, and who knows if they were right or not. I don't know. Interesting. It kind of relates to what I was talking about a bit ago. Deliriants used, and how real, what we regard as just like a myth, and maybe they just thought of it as a myth. Did they? Or did they really see those things? Or believe they saw those things? I don't know. I'm sure there's all sorts of study about that. topic. One bizarre belief concerned sneezing, which was seen as an omen or message from the gods. It was believed that sneezing at the start of an important task or conversation indicated favorable outcomes, while sneezing unexpectedly or during an inappropriate moment was considered a bad omen. Another intriguing superstition involved the use of so-called quote-unquote curse tablets, or katadesmos, meaning to pierce and bind, which were typically thin sheets of lead inscribed with curses or spells. These tablets were often buried or thrown into sacred spaces or water wells, aiming, lead into water, and then the bad things happen. Interesting. Aiming to transmit the curse to the desired target. They were used for various purposes, including seeking justice, causing harm to enemies, or winning in competitions. Long hair and beard oil. Ancient Greek men took supreme pride in their appearance and considered their hair and beards as symbols of masculinity, beauty, and status, as we've already read. Artwork, including statues and vase paintings, often depicted men with carefully styled hair and well-groomed beards. These depictions served as ideals of male beauty and influenced cultural perceptions of grooming and appearance. Men would often dedicate time and effort and care to their hair or beards, using oils, combs, and other grooming tools to maintain their appearance. The style and length of the hair and beards varied over time across different city-states and social classes. For example, in the Archaic period, circa 750 to 479 BC, long hair, like I have, was fashionable, while in the Classical period, 479 to 323 BC, especially in Athens, shorter and more stylized haircuts became popular. In the case of beards, they were often considered a sign of wisdom, authority, and we've already read that. Now here's one. The unibrow as a sign of beauty and intelligence. In ancient Greek culture, the unibrow, a thick, unbroken line of hair above the nose, was seen as a sign of beauty and intellectual prowess. This belief stemmed from the idea that the unibrow formed a connection between the eyebrows, considered the seat of intelligence. Like the third eye. The Greek philosopher Socrates, renowned for his wisdom and intellectual pursuits, is often depicted in ancient artwork with a prominent unibrow. This depiction may have contributed to the association of a unibrow with intellectual superiority. The link between the unibrow and physical beauty may stem from the belief that symmetrical faces are regarded as the most beautiful, a reference to the ancient Greek mathematician Pythagoras' geometrical formula called the golden ratio of beauty phi. In some instances, women without unibrows would use black eyeliner, kohl, or kohl, to fill in the spaces above their noses to appear more beautiful. Here we go. Lots of cultures have this one. Obsession with phalluses. In ancient Greek, the ancient Greeks had a fascination with phallic symbols as representations of male virility and the generative power of life and protection against evil spirits and infertility. Phalluses were frequently depicted in art, architecture, and even worn as amulets. Phallic processions and performances were central to festivals dedicated to Dionysus, the god of wine, theater, and revelry. Participants would carry phallus-shaped objects, wear phallic costumes, or engage in sexually explicit comedic performances. Phallic humor was prevalent in ancient Greek comedy, also in Shakespeare. Shakespeare's if even in the tragedies, if you think something could be a dick joke, it is. It is. In ancient Greek comedy, which involved humorous and often crude jokes, puns, and physical humor related to the male genitalia. Shakespeare did it too. They were a way to entertain and satirize societal norms and taboos. Phallic symbols and imagery were also believed to have apotropic, protective qualities. They were thought to ward off evil spirits, protect against the evil eye, and avert bad luck. As such, phallus-shaped objects were often placed at entrances, on walls, and in public spaces, notably at boundary markers. Pregnancy tests, we read that one. Ooh, now this sounds very Japanese. Japanese have competitive shame, competitive apologizing. You know, I love that. Ooh, I should do an episode about that. Ancient Greeks had competitive mourning. The ancient Greeks had professional mourners or moirologists who were hired to mourn loudly at funerals. The louder and more intense the mourning, the more it was believed to honor the deceased. Professional mourners were almost exclusively women who sang lamentations, while family members and friends of the dead attended the prothesis, the laying out of the body. Forming a procession, the mourners would typically wail and tear at their hair and violently scratch their faces as a sign of grief. The wealthier and more powerful the deceased, the more professional mourners would have been presented at the funeral. Intriguingly, this tradition continues today in Greece, albeit slightly toned down. While they no longer pull out their hair, the moirologists still make offerings to the deceased in the form of locks of hair, perfume, oil, wine, honey, and floral garlands. I want professional mourners at my funeral. And this is going to be a mixed cultural thing. I want to be burned on a pyre. I do not want to be straight up buried. I want to be cremated on a pyre, okay? And I need professional mourners. I'm going to have a lawyer set up and money set aside to hire Japanese men in business suits to be there. No one knows them. These men must not know English at all. Japanese businessmen, professional mourners, and circus acts. This will be my funeral. Fear of beans. What the hell? Some ancient Greeks had a peculiar fear of broad beans known as fava beans. These strange individuals who were followers of the mathematician and philosopher Pythagoras, eponymous founder of Pythagoreanism, believed the beans contained the souls of the dead thanks to their flesh-like texture. Furthermore, the black spotted flowers and hollow stems led Pythagoreans to believe that the plants connected earth to the underworld, Hades, providing a route for human souls to come back to the world of the living. This association with reincarnation led some believers to reason that eating fava beans was an act of cannibalism. Maybe I guarantee you, Hannibal Lecter, Silence of the Lambs, a nice Chianti with fava beans. Because Hannibal is extremely intelligent. And eating fava beans in ancient Greece, to some, would have been considered cannibalism. Oh, that is an awesome reference. How fucking cool is that? See, we learn something new every time I do this show. It should be noted that other Greek and later Roman writers openly mocked this belief. Horace famously referred to fava beans as, quote, relations of Pythagoras, unquote. That's pretty funny. Even so, there is a known genetic order more common in the Mediterranean region than anywhere else in the world, known as Fauvism. The disorder triggers anemia-like symptoms if the person consumes the beans or inhales the pollen from the flowers, with extreme cases resulting in heart failure. The Pythagoreans may have been onto something after all. Fascination with eels. Eels were known to the ancient Greeks as enkylus and held a prominent place in their culture and mythology. I do not like eels. Snakes are one thing. Eels, I like even less. I'm not afraid of them like I am of snakes, but fuck, eels are ugly. And where do they come from? How do they breed? So much mystery around these strange creatures who I think they all come from the Bermuda Triangle, like every eel in the world. Is that what that is? One of the main reasons for their fascination was the mysterious nature of eels. The Greeks were intrigued by the fact that eels could seemingly appear out of nowhere in bodies of water, and their elusive behavior made them difficult to study. Eels were known to migrate between freshwater and saltwater habitats, and the Greeks were fascinated by their ability to adapt to different environments. The life cycle of eels also added to their allure. The exact reproductive mechanisms of eels were not understood by the ancient Greeks, who simply believed that they spontaneously generated from mud or bottom sediments of sea or river. This mystery surrounding their reproduction sparked curiosity and speculation. Moreover, as much as I think eels are fucking ugly, they are great. Unagi, delicious. Eels held culinary value in ancient Greek society. They were considered a delicacy and were frequently featured in feasts and banquets. Eels were also associated with the healing properties of water, and their consumption was believed to have therapeutic effects. Greek philosopher Aristotle even wrote about the different types of eels and their culinary preferences. Now, this one is interesting as well. I love fish. If I had a choice between like steak and like seafood and stuff, sometimes I might want the steak or whatever, but I love seafood. I'm a real seafood forward type person. I just love it. It makes me feel good. And maybe the ancient Greeks were onto something too, because they thought that they thought about the healing power of fish. The concept of ichthyotherapy, it's Greek to me, but third time, comedy comes in 3s and 5s, sometimes 4s if you pull it off right. Or the use of fish for healing purposes can be traced back to the physician Hippocrates, who believed that certain species of fish possessed healing properties that could benefit various ailments and conditions. For example, it was believed that various parts of fish, including their flesh, scales, and oils, when applied to wounds, could promote healing and tissue regeneration. These ingredients were used in the preparation of medicinal remedies, ointments, and poultices. For example, fish oil was used as a topical treatment for skin conditions and wounds. And hey, it still is. As someone with psoriasis, fish oil is very good. Very good. And fish scales were sometimes ground into a powder and applied to skin ailments. Additionally, live fish were used for their movement and secretions. It was thought that placing live fish on wounds or affected areas could provide pain relief and would aid in wound healing. The fish were believed to secrete substances that had therapeutic effects. Well, yeah, omega-3 fatty acids and that sort of stuff. we're on to something. Wow. This went on a lot longer than I was anticipating. So that's it. Stick around for this week's bonus episode. You can get access to it and all the other bonus episodes at patreon.com/ThatThingWithJames. And once again, those who are already patrons, thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next time. Bye.